First of all, we want just a brief outline of the history of the school.
Well, you hold it. The history of the school. The first school in Benhall was started in the late 1500s by Sir Edward Duke, who lived at Benhall, what is now known as the Old Lodge. He built the school on what was then the turnpike, the main road from Lowestoft to Ipswich. And children went there until the middle 1800s. I knew an old man who learned to read and write with a hand table. That was a long table covered with a thin coating of sand, and they either used a piece of stick or their finger. And then, when their space was full, they ran a ruler down the table and obliterated it after they'd read it back. This old man I actually knew. And in 1801, the Holland family bought the Benhall Lodge estate. And they decided to build a new lodge in Benhall, what is now Benhall Park. And the turnpike, as I told you before, ran right through that piece of ground. And so in 1848, the Reverend Holland, a big scholarly clergyman at the time, he had the new school built where you now learn, and where I learned too. It was in 1848, and it was supposed to house about, take in about 190 children, I believe. It was 120 nearly all the time I was there. And that's 70 years ago. The first schoolmaster I recorded is a Mr. Reynolds, the brother of the miller at Benhall Mill. And the next one was a Mr. Pant. And the next one was Mr. Chambers, John Chambers, who was trained at Saltley College and came from Birmingham to Benhall. And I should tell you that previous to this, there was a small infant school at Benhall Street where a Miss Fanny Pratt was the mistress, and the children up that end of Benhall had to pay tuppence a week. Even then they used to stop away from school, what we call playing truant, and go and spend their tuppence until they were found out. However, they all had to come to Benhall after 1848. That brings us up to the time, well, more or less contemporary. Because I started there when I was 2.5. They didn't put boys into trousers then till they were 5, so I went in petticoats. It was a great day when you got put into trousers. They were certainly made out to your brothers, but never mind. You've grown up then. How's that for the history? How's that for the history?
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
So then.
How many parishes attended the school?
Well, the parishes, Benhall, Turnfield came, and there were also 3 or 4 children from Saxmundham who were admitted because of its heritage from a Saxmundham man. But no other parishes, as far as I know.
How many hours did you go to school? How many hours did you go to school?
How many hours? Well, we used to go at 9, come out at 12 for dinner, and then be back at 1, and then come out at 4. But if you've been a naughty boy, you had to stop in and do some sums or write some lines. There were naughty boys in those days, you know.
How many classes were there in the school?
There was the infants, and when the infants were divided into 2, the very young and the not so young. Then you went into the next range of classes 1 and 2, which were taken by a junior teacher. Then classes 3 and 4 were taken by another teacher, junior. Classes 5, 6, and 6A were taken by the headmaster.
At what age did you leave school?
Now, that is one of the reflections on the past. At my day, this part of Suffolk was very poor, and the children who had to learn to help to earn the money to keep the family at a very early age. And also, this was getting towards the end of the Industrial Revolution, and to stop the drift from the land so that children didn't leave school and go and work in towns, factories, like Leyston Works or anywhere like that. They let them leave school at 12 years old if they could pass an elementary exam which they called a labour certificate, providing they worked on the land. And although they could only earn 3 shillings a week, it was a very welcome addition to the family income, because father, although he worked all the hours that God sent nearly, could only take home 9 shillings a week when he was single, and he got another shilling a week if he married.
How did you get to school?
Well, I was lucky, you see. I lived near the school, and so that didn't present a problem. But round Silverlace Green, there were quite a few families. Of course, they used to have to walk across the footpaths. The ones that walked down Silverlace Green had to walk right across the fields to Tollens and up the Mitford Road. That, in those days, was a big thing. They often arrived at school wet and hungry because they'd walked away all the benefits of the meagre breakfast that was possible in those days. And I remember well myself one boy of one family who often and often had to walk to school from there in his father's boots because there were no others available. And they used to have to stop to school at dinner. They had a packed dinner in those days. And it mainly consisted of bread and lard. There was no other food available. Bread and lard, or bread and dripping occasionally if they happened to have had secured the pork, which they was often produced at home. And my Aunt Grace, who was a teacher of the first and second class, used to make them a cup of hot cocoa for a penny a cup. Well, I haven't told you yet anything about Mr. Chambers. Now, Mr. Chambers was a musician and a gardener. He took us for singing, and at that time there was a scheme whereby village schools competed with one another for a prize at Ipswich annually. Benhall won this trophy several years. Their chief competitor was Fressingfield. Also, we went into this competition with regard to woodwork. The boys went to woodwork at Saxmundham, and the girls went for cookery. I myself won a prize once. And the competition also ran into the gardens. Now, I remember the gardens being started at Benhall. We had 12 plots and a horticultural plot. The 12, each boy had a plot allotted to him. I had number 6. And we used to learn to graft and grow vegetables. In fact, Mr. Chambers and Mr. Arthur Selman drew up a book for the East Suffolk County Council, which was the gardening book for the school at that time. And all the schools, I should say. And yes, I also went to night school. Now that's a thing where a boy who left at 12 could possibly pick up. And our night schools, led by Mr. Chambers, were very helpful. I practically learned to write there. And I also did some carpentry work once a week there. And Mr. Chambers' boys got enough in them so that a Benhall scholar became something to be respected by employers of labour for their knowledge and integrity. One boy became a schoolmaster in the army, and many lads went into the services and won a place for Benhall in the services. I left at 14 and went into the First World War, and I came back to Benhall, and I've seen the school, and the school children grow out of all knowledge, inasmuch that they are healthy, no rickety children now, and they're all well fed and all well dressed.